Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Savakinis. Welcome to our program in a nutshell. Today we have our special guest, Dr. Joseph Calabro. Dr. Calabro is the founder, president, and CEO of the Physicians Practice Enhancement Network. He founded it in 1994 to provide emergency services and healthcare professionals to hospitals in 7 states. Dr. Calabro is also a professor and chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine at Seton Hall University. He served as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. He has also published numerous articles on physician and healthcare management. He's board certified in emergency medicine with a long-standing background in academic medicine, research, and healthcare management. We're here to talk about not only Dr. Calabro, but the Circle Drive-In. The Circle Drive-In, as I'm sure most of our audience is aware of, is located in Dixon City. It opened in 1949. It took 6 months to build the facility at a cost of $225,000. It is one of the largest screens in Pennsylvania. And of course, this year with the pandemic, with the COVID situation, the Circle Drive-In has had the opportunity to reinvent itself. We've seen it featured in the New York Times, Time Magazine, Rolling Stone Magazine, and various other media outlets. And what a great opportunity for one of the individuals that was so instrumental in the Circle Drive-In, the uncle of Dr. Calabro, Mike Delfino. Mr. Delfino has to be passed away, I believe it was in February. He's probably looking down on us now saying, what has my theater, what has my drive-in become? It's become a concert venue with live streaming of concerts. National acts have appeared. Graduation ceremonies have been held there. Comedy routines, and of course, movies. With us, Dr. Calabro. How do you feel about all of these events happening at the Circle Drive-In?
Well, Bob, thank you for the opportunity to chat with you this afternoon.
Welcome.
It is a wonderment, quite frankly, because for years, the family has been in business. Mike and Gwen bought it in 1963, and it has been continuously running since, as you said, 1949, when it was originally opened. We thought innovation had occurred about as much as it could possibly have occurred over the last 10 years there. We decided to put a second screen up so that we would be able to have first-run movies continue to be there, and if they didn't do well, move them to the second screen like what happens in the indoor theaters. So we spent quite a bit on that. We upgraded to digital projectors so that the old speakers in the window that you forgot, then when we drive away, it would rip your window out. Well, those went by the wayside, and it was digital through your car stereo. We thought that was about as innovative as you could be. And then we decided about the same area, a couple years before then, to extend the season by opening the Circle of Screams, the Halloween attraction. Now, that's not necessarily something that you would normally think of at a drive-in. And when we did research across the country, there were no other drive-ins who had done that. They were all the more traditional haunts or hayrides or things like that. So we invested quite a bit in renovating the property, building roads, creating the attractions, and it was about as far as I thought we were going to go. So my uncle passed away the end of February at 98, and about a week later, COVID became COVID. And the world shut down, as we all know, unfortunately. And, people were afraid to come out of their house. People were afraid to do much of anything except for to sit and watch TV, watch the news. As this was going, we started to look at, well, maybe we could open safely because everybody's in your car. You are about as socially distant as you could be because it's the same group of people that were in your home. But we could provide some kind of entertainment. It's outdoors. It was safe. And we initially didn't open up the concession stand. And we thought we'd give it a whirl. And we had a lot of naysayers because no one had ever done this before. And as you mentioned earlier, as an emergency physician, everything that I've done my whole career has been in uncharted territory. So it was not that uncomfortable for me to say, well, we'll take the ball and we'll try to figure it out. We did that for a couple of weeks. And then I was reading the paper one morning digitally, the Scranton paper, and saw that all the schools in the area couldn't have their graduations. And sat back and thought, because all of my family, my mom, most of my aunts were all teachers or were all educators in Carbondale and in the local area. How devastating that would be to a high school senior who was all set to graduate and then have the rug pulled out from underneath you. So I told our manager, Dave Costelli, who's been with the family business for a number of years, I said, Dave, call up all of the schools in the entire valley and ask them all, do you want to come and do your graduation in a socially distant, in your car? We won't charge anything. It's community service, and we'll do a live stream up on the screen, however you want to do it. And I believe 8 or 9 of the schools said, we'd love to. Some were high schools, Johnson College did it, some other educational venues did it, and it just happened to be that the very first one was Carbondale area, which is where my mom was the superintendent in the 70s. And some of the people who are still there now as the senior people were the junior teachers when she was the superintendent. So I still knew some of them. They reached out, we had a long conversation, and they said, we'd like you to be able to speak at it as well.
Very nice.
And so we put a little platform, stage, in front of the screen. We had it set up so that each one of the kids in the school had put together a little potpourri of their, as if like a yearbook page kind of situation. So that was behind them. And as each one came up separately, nobody got a diploma by hand. It was on a little rack. And it came up and they stopped, took a picture, went off. And it was, for those kids, the smiles were unbelievable. And when I got up to give remarks, I stood up in front of the crowd and was ready to do a greeting. And I looked out and all I could see were cars. You couldn't see any people because everybody was in their cars. There were a few hundred cars. And I made that remark to the people who were there because they're all listening through their car radios, mind you, right? Because we had it all live circuited. And a couple of the cars, when I made the comment, started tooting their horns and flashing their lights. And so the entire feedback from my little remarks were based on the cars responding with the people in them. And I have to say, out of all the places that I've spoken over years and years, it was the most unique and probably most fun of any remarks that I've ever given. So the whole thing about it being a place of refuge. You could go, it was safe, and then as it progressed out of the peak of the pandemic, not on the backside, but at least not at the absolute peak, we started expanding it to doing other things. And the graduations continued the whole time. We did a number of fundraisers. We worked with Lackawanna Historical Society. We worked with some of the other schools, St. Joseph's Center, and we offered the property, or in some of the things with the Historical Society, we did retro movies, Caddyshack, things like that. And there was no place for anyone to go. I mean, we have to keep remembering it's kind of fun, but in that environment, in that bubble, there was no place to go. So I got a call, actually it was an email from one of the photojournalists from the New York Times. And she reached out and she said, you know, I'm up here for the summer. She was sent out of the city because she had a pulmonary situation. And I'd like to come up and do some photography. Absolutely. I met her. She interviewed me. She came up at least a dozen times and did all different photo shoots. She was so into it because she was there when we were on the roof. She was there during graduation. She was there doing a lot of the retro pieces, and called me one day really excited. Michelle Agins was her name. Pulitzer Prize winner, top 10 African-American photojournalist in the country. So big chops. And she said, John, I'm really excited. I've gotten this picked up as a national piece. And then I was interviewed 2 or 3 times by one of the senior writers for the Times. And on Labor Day Monday, it was a national piece, full page, about the drive-in. Now, I got more comments. They said, we don't think anybody from northeastern Pennsylvania had gotten that kind of press, maybe ever, and certainly positive press. Mm-hmm. Probably not, except for maybe Joe Biden as the local boy. So we really took the ball and decided to run with it. Then we got crazy. We said, well, I guess we can do anything, because no one ever had those rules before. We continued to be very socially distant. We continued to be very safe. And little by little, we start opening up a little bit more with the concession stand and the popcorn and the sodas and the things that everybody has gotten to know and love over the years up at the drive-in. We then moved to, there was a large live streaming concert that we were asked, that was Garth Brooks. And it was coming from someplace in the Midwest. It was live streamed to about 300 drive-ins in the country. And we did that, and it was a huge success. One more concert came in after that was live stream. And then we start getting approached from the promoters. Gee, why can't we do the actual concert here and then live stream it elsewhere? So we said, I guess we'll figure it out. And we did. And we've had a number of the smaller local venues, Chris Shine and some of the others, who we put a little stage up on the roof of the concession stand. And then it got bigger, and we put a large stage up just next to the main screen. And we've had, I think, 15 or 18 concerts so far that have been pretty much all sellout. And normally we have 1,000 cars capability. We cut it in half, because where the old speaker posts are, we still have the speaker posts, but instead of being 2 cars, it's just 1. So it made everybody socially distant, and you could put your chair out outside the car. You could sit, or a sleeping bag for the kids with all the SUVs with the backs up. And so we're continuing to do that, and we've gotten more positive responses from the local neighbors, the business neighbors that are there, because we're bringing a lot of people up to otherwise relatively abandoned area, because most of the stores were not open for a long time, and now we're still struggling, and so it's bringing a lot of people back up. It's if you look back a year ago, what did we do? Well, we did movies and we did a flea market on Sunday. Well, now what do we do? Well, we still do the flea markets on Sunday, very safe, and a lot of people, little by little, are coming back. We're still doing movies, but there are virtually no new releases. I think we had 1 or 2 new releases this year, because the movie studios are not putting them out because most of the indoor theaters aren't open. We even had Amazon Prime reach out to us and asked us if we could do an initial screening. And so we did an initial screening at the drive-in before they put it on their live stream. The Horror Film Festival is coming up pretty soon. We have we're going to do contemporaneous concerts along with The Haunt over Halloween weekend. Mm-hmm. So anything that comes up, we're moving toward. We had a couple of fundraisers for bingo in the day. We've had some ballets. We've had comedians, some national comedians that have come up. And we're even going to be doing the Nutcracker around the holiday. So when you look a year ago and you look now, the movies we continue to play movies, right, but they're all retro movies. Caddyshack, Jaws, Star Wars, all classics, Grease. And it's fascinating to me how I guess I kind of view it as a iconic comfort food that's safe. Yep. And you've been there since 1949. Everybody around here has been there at least once for something. And in this place, you can pivot back to some place that's comfortable, that's safe, and that's fun. And in the beginning, there was nowhere to go. Now there's a little bit to go, But even then, none of the concert venues can do that because you can't stay socially distant unless you're in a stadium where you're in this row and I'm sitting in that row, and that just doesn't work because they require so many more people.
You've covered a lot there, and I just look at everything, and I would just overall look at what the Circle Drive-In has done as far as, and there's many aspects of it. I'll look at it, say, from the economic standpoint at this point in northeastern Pennsylvania, and just think of the concerts and the people. Obviously I've been to some of the events this past summer, the movies and things, and there were a lot of cars from out of the area,
Yes.
out of state license plates. So you're bringing in people to come in that are going to go stay at a hotel, possibly go
Yes.
to a restaurant, do some shopping locally and everything. So the Circle Drive-In pretty much has become the entertainment mecca or venue for northeastern Pennsylvania and beyond those borders this summer, and hopefully it will continue.
We have every plan to be able to continue this because, when I put my emergency physician hat on,
With your medical background, yes.
as much as everyone would like to think, this is kind of over, I suspect that it will have trickles of concern for a long time. Even if a vaccine is out, even if everything else, even if everybody can get vaccinated, the old normal is going to take a long time to come back. And a lot of people who are vulnerable are going to say, I don't want to take that risk, but I'm comfortable in my car because the same people were just in my house. So I really do think it has changed probably forever, the venue.
And I would think the safety features are that people are self-creating their own safety
Yes.
features. They're with their own family members or friends that they're bringing with them. The distance, they're outdoors or in their own vehicle and
Right.
everything. So it just accommodates for, as you said, everything from movies to concerts to graduations to everything.
Right.
Just looking at it from a family perspective, your family's involvement, your uncle and everything, how do you think your uncle would feel at this point saying, we have made, the New York Times, Rolling Stone magazine, Parade magazine, so many features and everything. How do you think he would feel with his business, and how do you feel about his legacy and what this has established and created?
That's a very kind question, and on Mike's behalf, and Gwen, my aunt, because they were partners in their business. Mike always had the aspiration of being the number one in everything that he did. And he
It's a good goal to have.
Yes, and he was quite a showman, quite a philanthropist. And, he was up until a couple months before he died, fully in the saddle. Every day he was there at 98. And so I clearly think about this a lot. I have no doubt that he has to be as happy as anybody could be because we took something that was kind of in a static business mode and flipped it to something now that is cutting edge across the country. And I can't imagine anything other than just a big smile on his face with that. How do I feel? When I've been asked that before, in the beginning of this, it was much more of a labor of love because it was more out of the legacy for he and my aunt. But as I've gotten a little more involved with it, there's a huge sense of pride that we've been able to take something and create a destination point for all those venues that you just described, from schools to kids to adults to concert to movies, and it was a safe place. So I really feel proud that we've been able to do that in a very short period of time. Give something back to the community, which was always my aunt and uncle's view of, if you're in the community, you're in the community and you're part of the community. And they always were. And so I've taken on that labor of love to do that. And so I feel really good about it.
And on behalf of several community organizations that I'm supporting and involved with, we say thank you to your family and the Circle Drive-In because, again, spending a few events and being there for a few times and everything over the past summer and everything, I've seen the give back that the Circle Drive-In gives to this community, whether it's from the business perspective or from the charitable perspective.
Right.
And again, it's very nice to have a family-run business that knows how important its community is and really does want to come out and support it, as your uncle and aunt did for many, many years, and you continue that as well. How do you feel, though, as far as like the national recognition goes for the Circle Drive-In, as far as being that entertainment mecca here, venue?
If I want to be cute, I'm going to say it's well-deserved.
Okay.
If I want to be a little circumspect, I will say that if I can stimulate some other place in some other area in the country to become that refuge for local entertainment in a safe way, I'll be happy as can be.
In your involvement in the industry, if you want to call it the drive-in industry at this
Right.
point, what is the feeling amongst other owners of drive-ins throughout our country and how they're doing, or are they jealous of how the Circle Drive-In is doing, or is the whole industry doing extremely well?
No, that's not the case. There's only about 350-ish drive-ins that still exist. There had been thousands at the peak in the late 50s. A lot of them are smaller. A lot of them did not invest in the technology. And it was still the old reel-to-reel with the speaker on the post. Unfortunately for them, this wave has passed them by, because the only way you can really make that a destination is with the digital projectors and with the stereo in the car and the technology that we put in over the last 10 years or so. So a lot of the small ones, I think, are having a really hard time. Plus, like us, we were dead closed for a significant amount of the season until we were able to open towards the end of May. Normally we're a couple months. The costs were much higher because we had to hire a lot more staff for the sanitary reasons, for the spacing, more than double the normal staff that we would have to order. So we were able to push on that because we had the technology in place. The other drive-ins that are out there, a lot of them have tried to do what we're doing. Some of them are. I don't think quite at the pace that we have done. And I suspect that that has something to do with my approach to this. You go back as an emergency physician, you lead with your chin. You figure it out when you go, you stick your neck out, you do what you need to do, you try to do the right thing. In this one, it was, we're going to lead with our chin and we're going to roll with it as fast as we can. And I think because of that attitude, we were able to jump out front and get that national recognition, whereas some of the others were able to do that, but I don't think it was at the speed we were able to do it. And so now we have become the leader, especially with all the press. And I mean, I guess it was about 3 weeks or so ago, we got asked to do a live segment from Fox Business News. So they came and they did it on the After the Bell show. I was interviewed. They had a little studio set up on the roof of the concession stand. And the comments that came in after that were, this is not just, your father's old Oldsmobile kind of a drive-in. This is a whole different thing, but it still looks like and feels like what it did in the 60s. And that's what we've tried to do. And I think a lot of the other drive-ins who did not have the wherewithal to keep up with maintenance, to keep up with the technology, to keep up with a lot of the things that we had done just because we wanted to, we were able to jump off those. If you hadn't done that, I don't think it would have been possible. So unfortunately, there will be, I'm sure, more than a handful of drive-ins that will not make it this year because they don't have those things in place, which is, and the indoor theaters are hurting badly. So it's, I'm sure there are some that are jealous, others who want to follow us, and we're very inclusive. We get calls all the time. How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do this? And we're more than happy to give them the advice that we need to be able to do.
So Mr. Delfino's legacy continues as the showman.
Absolutely.
In which you guys are continuing to lead the drive-in industry.
He's the consummate showman, and he continues to be from beyond.
A fun way to look at it. If you look at everything overall as far as just the recovery of, maybe not the recovery is the right word, the reinvention of what the drive-ins have become, how nostalgia and the retro feel has become big and popular again, but yet you're talking about the technology. So the nostalgia, the retro look is there, but the technology is there to support the newest and the latest.
Yes.
You mentioned about the Nutcracker coming in I'm assuming that's closer to the holiday season. And if I recall in the past, the Circle Drive-In, pretty much in most drive-ins, I assume we're done around the Halloween season for showing some movies late October or so. Does it sound like there will be plans for continuing into the winter season, or is that lead by the chin and just see how things develop?
It's we fully plan to be moving out beyond Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We are talking about doing a Christmas venue now. Not sure exactly what that will look like. Unfortunately, this is still northeastern Pennsylvania, and it does snow.
Yes.
And so if it snows a lot, that could be the pandemic equivalent of a shutdown for us. But we will push it as far as we can through hopefully Christmas season with differing things that we have now. And we're in the development stage of some of those now. Because usually we would close Labor Day-ish, then we pushed it till the end of October with the haunt. And so now we pushed it to the end of around Thanksgiving for the flea market. And so if we can push it another month and put it into the holiday season, we're looking at doing a couple of Christmas bazaars, things like that. And a lot of people have been contacting us because it's open space.
Yes.
And they feel comfortable and they feel safe. So we're still leading by chin. But my goal would be to try to have it through Christmas if we can.
Very nice. So, of course, for our audience to check out the Circle Drive-In, your website and also your Facebook page, just to keep updated on all the constantly changing activities being added and things like that. I'm going to look at your medical background a little bit. And for our audience, what can you tell them about that if they haven't been there yet, would make them feel most comfortable about some of the things that have been enacted as far as safety goes at the Circle Drive-In? I know you mentioned the distancing, but what other measures have been done?
We've really taken that seriously. So the primary one is the in the car and the distancing when you're looking at the venues. In the concession stand, we put up barriers between where the food is and where the people come in, like a plexiglass kind of a vinyl situation.
But I still have to ask, you could still get the good hot dogs and the delicious popcorn and
Absolutely.
everything else. All the good foods are still there.
Every piece that we have, from the popcorn, which is still the quintessential snack that we have, through hot dogs and the hamburgers and the pierogies and the drinks and the pizza, all that's still there. The difference is that it's all in enclosed packages now. There's the vinyl between where we cook and where the people come in. We have people cleaning the bathrooms every couple of people to try to make sure that it's as sanitized as it can. And during the concerts, we have a number of outdoor porta potties and outdoor sanitation little kiosks where you just go in and you can step on the pedal and clean your hands. So we've gone as far as we could possibly go. All the staff have masks on, they all have gloves on, they change them appropriately. So we took it very seriously. And even if you were just a local business person, we would have taken it seriously. But with what my day job is, it was very clear that we weren't going to do anything that I felt was going to put anybody in jeopardy.
So our audience can definitely feel at ease, as they have been most of the summer season and into the fall now and everything. Just again, looking at the Circle Drive-In itself, you mentioned about a second screen was added and the stage. Are there any other things going to be continuing to develop there, or do you think you're at a point now that you just have to be ready to book the acts and come up with these new innovative ideas? Physically, are we pretty well where you want to be?
Well, we never stagnant.
That's leading by the chin again,
yes,
right?
Very much. We're looking now at enclosing part of the flea market. So it would still be open air, but with the cover, because if we have a bad rain day, it shuts down the flea market, and it's only one day a week.
And that's very successful through all these years that I've attended, and I've seen people, or I've heard people talk about how
on a nice
what a
day,
great place to be, or a great event as well. In addition,
it's every Sunday people get there very early, 7 o'clock in the morning until mid-afternoon. On a nice day, we'll have a few hundred vendors. We'll have thousands of people walking around. In that structure, if it rains, it's shut down for the day. So we're looking now, and we're getting some specs to have part of it be at least overhead enclosed, not a building, so that you can continue during rainy days or inclement weather. So we're looking at that now. That's probably the next thing on the horizon.
So obviously a lot of ideas, a lot of leading by the channel, a lot of new ideas and thoughts, concerts. We assume into the 2021 season there'll be a lot more activities and events for people to pay attention to on the website, your Facebook page and everything. Any thoughts on that?
We are already getting a lot of requests to be put on the circuit for a lot of the national acts for next year. So that they were so happy with what we were able to do with the environment and with the accommodations for them. Some of them made the comment, they stand up on the hill and they're on the stage and you look out over the entire valley. It's a magnificent view. And usually you're looking up the hill at the screen, but the stage is looking down over the valley. That itself has become a huge draw for a lot of the bands and a lot of the promoters. So we will clearly be booking a lot more. If they're doing the tour, we'll be on that tour stop now, and they really like the idea. We were contacted by Lincoln Center to have Wynton Marsalis come up, and we were planning to do that this season. It was a very short time frame. They're kind of elderly, and so we decided to punt that until the spring when there was more time to plan for that. But to have the Lincoln Center people contact you to say, gee, we'd like to come up and come to your place, it was quite a validation that we've been able to put together a good product.
Well, also having the New York Times spend some
Yes.
time with you guys, and I believe it was Rolling Stone magazine,
Yes.
Parade magazine, and Fox News and everything. So.
Yes.
Well, I just want to say congratulations to
Thank you.
you and your family and the business. It's a great community partner that you are in supporting us. You're also a wonderful entertainment facility for everyone, our audience, to go out there. And again, I encourage everyone to go on your Facebook page, your website, to just keep track of all the activities, because if there's going to be a cutting-edge act or performance, the Circle Drive-In is going to be the place to be, and it seems like it will continue to be the place.
That's my commitment.
Okay. Dr. Joseph Calabro, thank you for being our guest today, and for the Circle Drive-In and for everything that you guys do up there to make northeastern Pennsylvania a wonderful place to live in. Thank you again for tuning into our program in a nutshell.